Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, adapted by Lisa Malaki, illustrated by Howard McWilliam. Part 6. Chapter 11. Monks destroys evidence. So it came to be that Mr. Bumble and Mrs. Corney married. Bumble was promoted to master of the workhouse. It had only been 2 months since the marriage, but it was 2 months too much. Bumble missed his old life.
I sold myself 6 teaspoons, 2 pairs of silver sugar tongs, fine furniture, and a corn,
he said as he sat across from Mrs. Bumble. Mrs. Bumble growled,
"You were cheap, Dad. Lord knows I paid for you."
The two had another fight that ended with Mr. Bumble finding his way to the town pub. He seated himself at the bar. There was a stranger sitting next to him. Mr. Bumble couldn't help staring at the sores that covered his hands.
"I know you, don't I?"
said the man.
"Aren't you the master of the workhouse?" I am,
Mr. Bumble replied.
"What luck?"
said the man.
"I came to town today to find you, but you find me first."
He slid a few coins over to Bumble.
"Think back quite a few years ago, 12 to be exact, to a time when a woman gave birth in your workhouse and died." "We had lots of those women,"
said Bumble.
"All the same to me." "The baby was a boy. He was later sent to live with a coffin maker." "You mean Oliver Twist?"
said Bumble.
"I knew of him. A rascal, a menace." "I know enough about him,"
said the man.
"I want to know about the nurse who helped deliver that baby. Where is she? I must find her." "Out of work,"
laughed Bumble.
"She's dead. Died last spring."
Bumble wasn't sure if the man looked disappointed or relieved at the news. The stranger stood up to leave, but Bumble was cunning. He remembered the night of Sally's death. Mrs. Corney knew something and had promised to tell him when they married.
"I know someone who knew her,"
said Bumble.
"She was with her the day she died. She could help you for the price."
The stranger smiled.
"Meet me tomorrow evening at 9 o'clock.
He took out a piece of paper and scribbled an address on it.
"Tell no one."
The man started to go out the door as Bumble looked at the address. It was by the waterside. He noticed the man had forgotten to write down his name.
"Sir,"
said Bumble.
"What is your name?"
The man stared at him.
"I need to know who to ask for tomorrow." "Monks,"
said the man.
"Ask for monks."
The next evening was dry and humid. Mr. and Mrs. Bumble disguised themselves in long cloaks and made their way to a rickety house on the water.
"Hello there,"
said a voice from above.
"Come inside. Don't keep me waiting."
The two made their way inside to a cramped, dirty house.
"Is this the woman?"
demanded Monks.
"This is the woman,"
replied Bumble.
"As promised."
Monks smiled.
"The sooner we do our business, the better."
"You want information about the nurse who helped bring Oliver Twist into this world?"
asked Mrs. Bumble.
"Was it worth for you?"
"Maybe nothing, or maybe 20 pounds,
said Monks.
Depends on what you tell me."
"Is is worth more than that,
said the woman.
I want £25 in gold.
£25 in gold?
Exclaimed Monks.
I assure you, it's a small sum for such a large secret,
said Mr. Bumble. Monks hesitated before shoving his hand in his pocket. He took out a canvas bag. He handed Mrs. Bumble £25 in gold. Mrs. Bumble smiled.
When Nurse Sally died, we were alone. She spoke of a young boy that she brought into the world. In fact, she brought him into the world in the very room she slept in. The nurse robbed his mother.
In life?
Asked Monks.
In death,
replied the woman.
She stole from the cops. She had given Sally something meant for the son, but Sally kept it herself. Then she sold it for money.
Who did she sell it to? What was it?
Asked Monks.
Before she could explain more,
said Mrs. Bumble,
she fell back onto her pillow and died.
Without saying more?
Asked Monks.
It's a lie! You are lying to me! I will not be played by you or your husband!
It's the truth,
said Mrs. Bumble.
But she clutched my hand and slid something into it as she died. It was a pawn ticket. The ticket was about to expire in 2 days, so I went and retrieved the object.
Where is it now?
Asked Monks. She threw her back on the table.
Right here.
She pulled out a small gold locket.
Inside were 2 locks of hair and a plain gold wedding ring.
She held the locket out for Monks to inspect.
It has the name Agnes on it,
said Mr. Bumble.
The day is the year before the child was born. Anything else?
Asked Monks.
Then it's all I know,
said Mrs. Bumble. Mr. Bumble prayed it was enough. He didn't want Monks to take the £25 back.
Is that the information you wanted?
Asked Mrs. Bumble.
It's exactly what I needed,
said Monks.
But now I must do this.
He jumped up and slid the table aside. He grabbed an iron ring on one of the floorboards and threw it back. The Bumbles quickly gathered around the trapdoor. The water was below them, racing rapidly. Monks took the contents of the bag, wrapped them back up, and threw the bag into the water below. He closed the door.
Our business is done. Leave at once. You will do well to forget my name.
The Bumbles rushed out of the dank house, happy to travel far away from this crazy man. Chapter 12. A Warning for Rose. The next evening, Bill Sikes woke up from a nap.
How do you feel tonight?
Asked Nancy.
As weak as water. Lend me a hand and help me off this bed.
His mood was foul and didn't improve when Fagin dropped by for a visit.
I've bought something for you, Sikes.
Fagin had the Dodger open a bag and hand the food and drink to a sickly-looking Bill.
This is good, but I need money,
said Sikes.
If I don't get some, I could die.
Sikes sent Nancy home with Fagin to get some money. While she was there, a knock came at the door. It was Monks. Nancy stared at him.
It's only Monks, one of my people,
said Fagin. He turned toward Monks.
When did you return to town?
2 hours ago,
said Monks.
Did you see him?
Asked Fagin. Monks looked at Nancy, and back at Fagin.
Yes.
He hesitated.
Why don't we talk in private?
As soon as the man disappeared up the steps, Nancy slipped off her shoes. She drew her gun over her face so her shape wouldn't betray her. She glided silently up the stairs to listen to Monks and Fagin. When she had heard all she needed to, she quickly and quietly returned downstairs. Fagin and Monks followed shortly.
I've been waiting for Bill's money, Fagin. I want to be getting home now,
Nancy said. Once Fagin dropped the coins into her hands, she was off with one last look at Monks. By the time Nancy reached Sykes, she felt pale and weak. She tried to hide her mood from Sykes. It turns out he wouldn't have noticed her mood or feelings. All he cared about was Fagin's money. The next night, Nancy waited for Sykes to drift off to sleep before she dared leave the room. She dressed quickly and slipped out the door. She walked to a fancy hotel in the West End of London. She prayed she wasn't too late. When she reached the fanciest hotel near Hyde Park, she stood at the door. A woman poked her head out.
Who do you wish to see here?
She frowned as she looked Nancy over.
Miss Rose Mady,
Said Nancy.
I must see her.
The woman turned up her nose.
She'll never see someone like you. Please tell her it's important.
Backed Nancy.
Won't someone help a poor girl like me? I mean no harm.
Finally, a sweet cook stepped forward.
I'll give her your message.
5 minutes later, Nancy stood in front of Rose.
I beg of you.
Said Nancy with tears streaming down her eyes.
I beg your forgiveness.
Rose was confused and took Nancy's hands in hers.
Don't be so sad. Tell me what's troubling you. I am the one who kidnapped Oliver from Mr. Brownlow and brought him back to Fagin's place. You?
Said Rose.
Why? There's so much to tell, and I'm sure I will be killed if they find out I'm here. We don't have much time. I must know something. Do you know a man named Monks? No,
Said Rose.
he knows you.
Said Nancy.
He knows you are here, and that's how I found out about you.
Rose sat down upon hearing this news.
After Oliver was put into your house on the night of the robbery, I listened in on a conversation between him and Fagin. Monks had seen him accidentally with 2 of our boys. It was on the first day we lost him. He knew about the boy, but I couldn't figure out why. A bargain was struck between him and Fagin that if Oliver came back, Monks would pay Fagin. If Fagin could make him a thief, he'd get even more money.
Rose was confused.
Why would he want Oliver to be a thief? I could never find out. Last night, they almost caught me listening. But I did hear one more thing. Monks said that the only proof of the boy's identity was at the bottom of the river, and the nurse that had the proof was rotting in a coffin. This is all so strange,
Said Rose.
He said he'd rather have Oliver dead, and if he had the chance to do it himself, he would. Then he said he was Oliver's brother.
Rose gasped.
His brother?
Nancy nodded.
He was planning on getting you to pay hundreds of pounds for him once you discovered who Oliver really was.
Nancy started to walk toward the door.
I I must leave. If they know I've come, then I won't have many breaths left.
Rose rushed over to her.
You are a brave woman to help Oliver. Please take this money. Use it to escape that way of life.
Nancy refused the money.
It is the only life I know.
As she was leaving, she cautioned Rose.
Have someone you can trust help you with Oliver. I'm afraid what monks will do. If you need me for anything else, I go for a walk on the London Bridge every Sunday night. You can find me there at midnight.
Nancy rushed home and praised the entire way that Bill Sykes had not noticed her missing. Thank you for watching. This is the end of part 6. To be continued in part 7. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe. See you then.